moving to Mangakino 4 years ago. She was looking for a quieter pace of life and a stronger community ties. She's a hands-on mum of 3 and runs a successful small business from home. Hope brings a straight-up, people-first approach to everything she does. And when you see this clip, which roughly runs for about 9.5 minutes, you'll get the feel of what Hope's all about. And hopefully get the understanding behind what she's saying and why she's wanting to stand it as a candidate for Mangakino. So without further ado, Rebecca, if you could start.
Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm sure it's pretty chilly over there this evening, so really appreciate you popping out to have a listen to us and see what we're about. Apologies I couldn't be there in person. We thought this was the next best way to get my message to you. My name is Hope Woodward and I am standing for the Mangakino Pōkāne Ward Councillor role. I am also a part of team Let's Go Taupō, and we believe council needs change and it needs it now. My fellow teammates, Rebecca and Anne, will also be speaking tonight. Both of these women are an absolute powerhouse when it comes to financials, numbers and economic strategies. They bring strong financial perspectives and a shared commitment to responsible council spending. Together, we offer a well-rounded and cohesive approach to sorting out this current mess that we're in, with a strong belief in fiscal responsibility, lean thinking and real solution. I'm proud to stand alongside of them. As for myself, I bring a practical, people-focused perspective, someone who understands how council decisions land in the real world. I'm driven by common sense thinking, community connection, and a strong belief in financial decisions that don't make your head spin. Our focus is on fixing what's broken, calling on what doesn't make sense, and pushing for spending that's got more backbone than buzzwords. We do also welcome any other candidates who are still considering running. If your values align, there's room to work with us. Because let's be honest, if we can't work together before we're elected, what hope do we have for after? You need people in council who are going to represent wholeheartedly and stay aligned across the board. I'm a local mum, a small business owner, and already a strong, outspoken advocate for our community in Mangakino and Whakamaru. I know what it's like to juggle family, work, rising costs and responsibilities, all while trying to keep a smile on your face and your bills paid. I'm standing for council because I'm tired of seeing our community overlooked while rates keep rising and core services stay the same or worse, disappear like leftover funding at the end of a financial year. We deserve better, not just more spending, but smarter decisions. We all want good infrastructure, safe roads, decent services, and a council that actually listens. But none of that should require an 8 or 9% rates rise year after year, especially when we're already dodging potholes and pinching our pennies. Taupō District Council is planning a significant investment in water services over the next 10 years, a key part of a broader long-term plan that includes upgrades to water, wastewater, stormwater, roads and community facilities. While final figures vary depending on the project scope, capital expenditure could exceed $600 million across the district over the next decade. Is this something that we're all actually committed to? Safe drinking water and reliable services are necessary, but are we making smart-centred investments, or are we signing ourselves up for a future where affording rates means choosing food over power, no more trips away, debt piling up, turning to loans or credit to keep up, our children not being able to afford to buy their own homes? Budgets must be in place now. Full transparency and clear breakdowns of where money goes should be non-negotiable. Right now, a significant portion of our rates is going towards paying off council debt, not in frontline services. This means less money for local maintenance, community spaces, or addressing the things people actually need. And while people are struggling to pay their rates, council spending keeps going into questionable things like fancy new buildings, sculptures that leave most of our heads scratching, and millions poured into traffic measures that seem more confusing than helpful. It's not that we don't want the improvements, but when the basics like safe roads, working drainage, and reliable services are being overlooked, it feels like the priorities are all wrong. It's not that we can't have nice things, but how about we get the basics right first? Council must prioritise essentials, affordability, and actual outcomes. I support independent audits to find where we can tighten the belt. Recently, I came across a news article about smarter council spending in Wanganui. The council recently reported one of the lowest rate increases in the country, around 2.2%. The mayor said they acted early, worked with their CEO on a cost-saving plan, and made decisions based on what the community actually needed. One change, removing a food scrap collection service that most residents were already managing themselves, compost. This reportedly saved around 1.5% on rates. At the same time, they increased infrastructure spending, but not recklessly. They redirected funds into high-priority projects. In other words, they stopped buying fluff and started funding function. Now, I don't know every detail of their situation, and I know every district is different. But the key thing here is that when councils act early, work together, and plan properly, they can avoid unnecessary rate hikes without compromising the stuff that matters. That's the kind of leadership we want to bring here. Less spin and more action. This isn't just about spreadsheets. It's about values. It's about leadership that listens, includes, and takes action. It's about making sure our people aren't punished for poor decisions made behind closed doors or at catered planning retreats. Now let's talk rate caps. Some people say they're a bad idea because they can lead to underfunding, service losses, or more borrowing. And yes, a cap without a plan is like a parachute with no straps. Risky business. But the real issue isn't the cap, it's the lack of planning. If a council is blowing its budget and then coming back with its hands out, that's a planning problem, not a cap problem. What's a common sense step that we can take? Independent financial reviews before every major rate increase. It's not radical, it's just good manners. Ratepayers deserve to know why they're being asked to cough up more and whether it's absolutely necessary. We also need to take a hard look at council spending and staffing. Are we overstaffed in some areas and under-resourced in others? Are the jobs being duplicated? Are we hiring external consultants to tell us what locals already know at 5 times the price? We need to ask these questions because every dollar spent on unnecessary admin or glossy reports is a dollar not spent fixing potholes, having working infrastructure, or making sure your rates don't require a GoFundMe page. As a community, we can all play a part too. Working bees, volunteering at a library, rubbish pickups, fundraising for shade sales. We don't need $1 million strategy to know what needs doing. We just need to be empowered to do it. In Monkey we're already rolling up our sleeves. One of our playgrounds desperately needs shade in the summer. In a local community hui that I hold, we've created a plan together. We've had a concept design drawn up by a local. Now we're looking at other ways to get it funded without waiting 3 years of council approval and a consultant to tell us, yeah, it's a bit sunny, isn't it? My team and I are committed to serving the people because we are the people. We live here, we work here, we know the issues because we live them too. If you're ready for that kind of real, straight up representation, not just new faces, but a new mindset, then we're ready to work for you. We don't think we have all the answers, but we know what the right questions are, and we're not afraid to ask them and to keep asking them and support each other in getting the answers. We're committed to transparency, accountability, and practical decisions that serve real people, not padded reports. Ngā mihi nui, thank you for your time. I hope that you really enjoyed tonight and that you make your vote count. Let's go Taupua, and let's remember we're all in this together.
So that's our first new candidate that's actually standing, and she's pretty special. Yeah, she's done a lot for Mangakino already with the different tours and workshops that she's actually got going out there. She's got quite a nice knit community that's very supportive, and she makes a really lovely fit for the team. And that. Now our next speaker is Anne Tweedy, so she's representing all of the Taupo Central. So Anne, if you'd like to come up and do your bit. Kia ora everybody, thanks for coming out freezing cold. My pick tonight is on wasteful spending because I'm trying not to duplicate what everybody else is talking about and what I've already talked about at the Acacia Bay Hall and the other meetings that we've had. And I'm just going to catch on 3 areas and keep it as brief as I can. The first one is the cost of living, which is often outside our own control. The only increases that could be justified are along with the cost of living index, inflation. As of February 24, our inflation was at 7.4%, while the cost of living index stood at 6%. That didn't include interest charges, and for the average household that meant the increase of living was 31% higher than it's been before. So if you're feeling the pinch, you're not alone. According to the Consumer Price Manager, James Mitchell from Statistics New Zealand, those were his figures, 31%, thank you, I think is huge. One News reports an average household cost of living index is only 3.8% to September 24, with a 5.4 increase to June 24 quarter, so it's just steadily going up. Another 3% increase occurred between then and December 24, and interest rates have risen by 7.1%. So anyone that hasn't got a mortgage or any debt not fixed, they're going to be struggling. Many expenses are unavoidable for us and for council. Insurance is up 14.3%, rent is up 4.4%, and interest payments, as I've already mentioned, are 3.7%. So, council budgeting, one of my favourite subjects that they keep ignoring with all the information I've sent them. They've acted on nothing. Very frustrating. They need to stick to core services. Water, stormwater, infrastructure and recreational parks and roads. Everywhere I go I'm hitting potholes. I've had a lot in the last 3 days, even on the lakefront. As you go around the main corner past the Millennium Hotel, it's been the same pothole for 6 or 9 months. So I get down there and I swerve around it and all the cars behind me go, what's she doing? Cool it on because they hit the pothole. I think they probably only do it once. It's pretty annoying. We can hold our rates charges by reversing proper planning on council budgets. Currently, I feel they've got the whole thing in reverse. When I go to Countdown, I know how much I can spend and I keep within that amount. They don't want to give me credit, so why should anybody else get credit? Our council has the previous year's figures and they know in advance how much they're going to generate for the income for the year. Therefore, by my logic, they should budget to that amount and not a penny more. A lot of councils in New Zealand have not only got out of control debt, they're now borrowing $100,000 a year to service the debt. That's extremely worrying. Our council's not quite that bad so far, but the government are putting a lot of pressure on them, so we need to get in there and fight back. According to government statistics, rent makes up 29% of beneficiaries' expenditure. That is huge. Most rents increased by 4.4%, and as we said, interest rates are 7.3% higher. For pensioners, costs rose 3.6% to February 25, and insurance has increased by 15.8% for pensioners, because the older you get, the more your medical insurance costs, the more your life insurance costs, the bill just keeps going through the roof. And the rent climbed by 4.5% in Taupo. And as the rates go up, the rents go up. A lot of people think because they rent that when the rates go up, it doesn't affect them. It's not true, because whoever owns the property is paying the rents,
Therefore, they've got to increase the rent, don't they, to recover their money. Our council needs to plan their budget carefully so they only spend what's coming out. Not that they've listened to me so far, it's probably what's got my back up, maybe motivated to do this. So wasteful spending is my subject tonight. This week, our Government Minister Simon Watts introduced legislation to Parliament, Yahoo, asking councils to focus on core services with cost efficiency and effectiveness. Major reforms are on their way. The failed 1991 RMA, which I'm not even going to bother reading because I believe it's going to go down the toilet, and they're going to replace it with the new National Environmental Act, which is still in the making. So I haven't read it, so I can't tell you about it yet, but I'll share that when I find out. It's going to make it easier to build houses and roads. There should be less red tape, particularly for farmers and growers. They are really suffering at the moment. And Chris Bishop in Christchurch, if you saw the interview the other day, it's well worth having a look. Our local JMAs need to be amended to exclude the old RMA. Again, it's not quite there, but it's coming as soon as possible. What does this have to do with our rate spending, you're asking me? The overspending has become completely unacceptable. 2.3 million they spend on a set of lights in our town, in little old Taupo. 2.3 million. That could have covered at least 2 new roundabouts. What's the point here? Well, roundabouts are safer, they're more efficient, and they are keeping traffic moving constantly. They reduce impact when there is a crash. You're more likely just to bump somebody along the way as opposed to take them out. I had the unfortunate experience of picking a lady up off the road the other day after a major impact.
Hey, what's up? Feel free to ask me about anything that's not
Sorry.
On the Forry Walker and Main Road, because they have put the speed limit back up to 80 k's. But coming out of Forry Walker Road, you wouldn't know that. Nobody would know that. My daughter knew when I quizzed her because they go to touring here back more than I do. And the poor lady, nothing wrong with her IQ. I've talked to her lots of times because we walk our dogs in the same park. She pulled out thinking she had a good 500 metres. The logging truck was doing at least 80 k's as he came along the road, and he collected her on the right-hand corner of her car. Now, luckily he saw her coming and he hit the brakes and slowed down and did everything he could, but he couldn't go in the opposing lane, and he managed to clip the front of her car as opposed to her driver's door. Her car is a write-off. We managed to get a few things out of it with her husband, and she's very lucky to be alive. So roading is an issue I'm quite passionate about, and I get as frustrated as anybody when they tell us we can only drive at 80 k's and not 100 k's, because I'm a very impatient driver, but safety first. And I think between the roundabout and Forry Walker turn-off, I'm going to ask whoever I need to that we can get it back down to 50 k's. Or some warning signs up there. There's no cars. No, okay. Well, maybe we need to have a referendum on it. Okay. Well, I don't want to be picking up any more bodies off the road. That was not very pleasant. Okay, so we've got past the roundabouts. The other thing I want to bring up is the 180,000 spent on the dinosaur, because I think that's something everybody can relate to. With more expected, they're planning to do a whole lot more.
It wasn't on the dinosaur. There was a chunk was generally grant to the Sculpture Trust.
100,000 to the Sculpture Trust, as I understand it.
100 grand for the dinosaur, around about 13,000 or whatever it was for sighting the dinosaur,
Yes.
and then there was another 60,000 as a general grant to the Sculpture Trust.
I saw that. I
Yeah,
read all
just-
your breakdown on that.
Yeah,
I
I'm just saying it's
went
not.
back and watched
Just saying
it.
it's not 180 for the dinosaur itself. It's just to
Okay,
clarify.
all right. Well, so
Yeah.
exorbitant amount of money. And to be fair, these decisions were made by the previously elected council, not the current one. But nevertheless, it's a waste of money, and they're planning to do a whole lot more. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't see anything in Taupo that relates to a dinosaur. Like a trout, maybe, but not dinosaurs. It's absolutely ridiculous. Crazy, absolute insanity. I don't know who dreamed it up, but they need their head smacked with a wet fish. Now we need to also demolish the old council building, which they could have used, and it could have been rented out. So that's just a few examples of a waste of money. So going forward, let's try and have a more positive attitude. Solutions for the future could be things we can do to avoid wasting money going forward. Stop spending money on climate change initiatives. There is no evidence. Sea levels haven't risen more than 1/4 of a millimetre in the last 55 years. It's a NASA con. It's absolute bullshit. It's an absolute waste of money, and they're dragging money out of all the councils across New Zealand towards this con, and it's absolute BS. We all know that. They treat us like we're stupid, like we're going to believe their lies. We are not that dumb. We don't. So that's the first thing that's got to go. Avoid smart city projects, and all these areas are trying to write off around New Zealand because of council erosion and a whole bunch of other dreamed up flooded things. More crap to deal with. Speed bumps, especially outside our local retirement village. Now, I'm down Whare Waka. They had this huge speed bump that you had to drive past right in the gateway, so the ambulances couldn't get people out of there without having to go over a big bump. So what's the logic? I mean, people don't even think things through. Orange cones, we all hate them. They're everywhere. In America, they don't even use them. My son did a trip in January, right across the states and back. He said, Mum, there's roadworks everywhere. Not one orange cone to be seen. You don't need them. It's just somebody revenue collecting. They need to go down the toilet and stay down the toilet. Hire local tradespeople. We're too quick to use consultants. We're too quick to sign a contract with somebody and say, oh, you've got the capability and we don't, we'll let you do this and here's the check, just do whatever you want to do. It's a ridiculous way. We'd never run our homes like that. So why does council run like that? Any project that needs to be done, it needs to be quoted on. You need to have estimates. No, estimates can be changed. Quotes, we want quotes. We want a price on every single project and we want the best price and the best time on every job. And then we'll agree to it, not before. Right, what are we up to? Simplify or scrap unnecessary permits and resource consents. I'm hoping some of that's going to go with the RMA changes. We're hoping. Can't wait to see this new National Environment Act. It's coming out soon. It's worth holding our breath for. And hopefully, once we get in there and push back against all the government BS, we can help reduce some consultancy fees as well. Some people argue that consultants are worth their weight in gold because they know more than we do and they're going to come up with a better plan. I don't really buy into that. I think if the people at council like Duncan, who's got a roading background, can't look at a roading cost in the job and work out if it's a good deal or not, well, if he can't do it, no one else is going to do any better, are they? So we need to bring these decisions back in-house. Okay, stick to charging rates at inflation and the cost of living. Even though it's high, if we can keep to basics and get rid of all the surplus spending, we should be able to bring it down. And it's also been suggested, even through some public consultations this week that have been going around with the radio stations and RCR, is if they really need to push for something extra, like we all might decide it's going to be worth having higher rates one year just to have the bridge put in because everybody's hanging out for a wider bridge, or we could have a public referendum. And with the referendum, the people can vote. They can say, yes, we'll pay extra rates for a year or two if that's going to be the results of our hard spent money, and let the people have the choice. Because aren't the people paying the rates? You know, we've got an attitude up there that I've seen for over a year now of blasé, like, oh, this is what we think, this is what we're going to do, and comments about, oh, we're not going to ask the public because they don't know what they're talking about. It's absolute arrogance because we live here, we don't have to live here. They forget we can all pack up and go away. I'm already looking at a camper van. I'm not going to carry on paying these exorbitant rates every year. They're already too high, and they're looking at putting them up even more. Oh, and worse, we've got water meters around the corner. Oh my God, it makes my blood boil. That is so rude and so unethical. I put a rainwater tank in, but not everybody's going to be able to afford to do that. It's absolutely wrong. It's real WEF and UN nonsense. It's feeding down, and I believe that if we get new blood in and people that are awake, like Rebecca and Hope and I, if we get 4 or 5 of us into council pushing back to support the council people who are awake against all the crap that's being fed down through government, if we don't push back, and soon, like now, we're just going to get railroaded into either using all our savings to let the council waste our money, or we're going to leave town. I totally hear what you said tonight, Sandy. I feel the same. I go, shall I go to council? Shall I run with this and put up with this and push back, or shall I just give up and buy a camper van and go north, you know? I'm sitting on the fence still this week, I really am. I have good moments and bad moments. And then when I hear people have arrogant comments in council about, oh, what do the public know? That's just enough to get my back up and fire me up to want to fight back and make the change. Okay. Now Rebecca had a very good thing that some of your new faces would have missed tonight. She pointed out at Acacia Bay meeting recently that Boom Boom cost the equivalent of $3 per household per annum, or a year-long no rates for 60 homes in Taupo, or 340 metres of unsealed dirt road. The thing is, with money, when you know what's coming in, you can only spend it once. And once they start borrowing, which the government is encouraging them to do, through the BlackRock-backed NZGA funding setup, it's a never-ending hole that you go down and it'd be very, very hard to get out. We're very fortunate in Taupo that we have only 231 million borrowed and 90,000 of cash assets that we can call on. A lot of councils are in a worse state, but I would not want to see Taupo get into a bigger mess than what it's already in. And if you doubt me, go and have a look at the government debt clock. It changes not only daily. I nearly bought a printout, but I haven't done mine for over a week, and it climbs every hour, every day. It just keeps a mark. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It gets out of control. So the bottom line, can you afford a 68% rate increase? I can't. In the next 8 years, that's exactly where we're heading, because it compounds every year. What have we got this year, Duncan? 8.4? 9.4 rate increase for the year. And they go, oh look, we've kept it at this. Excuse me, it was that much last year and the year before, and it compounds. So you've only got to do some basic maths to see where the graph is going. I can't afford a 68% rate increase in the next 7 or 8 years. No, I will not be living in Taupo if it goes down that rate. I probably wouldn't even finish 3 years on council. We need to get it stopped. It needs to be halted. They know what they're getting in. They've already got an extra 10 million from the new subdivision over there. So they've already got extra funds, and yet they're stretching it even further and on unwise spending, which makes it even more frustrating. Okay, bottom line, most of us will be priced out of our homes in the next 5 to 8 years, especially pensioners like myself and single mums. How are they going to cope? We'll be forced into camper vans as the percentage we're being charged is too high a percentage versus our income. One lady we know in Christchurch, Robin, who's in our Challenging Council group, is paying 39% of her pension in rates, while the local CEO is only paying 2.3% of her nice high government wages, and that's in Christchurch. If you don't believe me, you can ring or email her and confirm that. We have a demand that council aligns its spending with realities that we're facing everyday households. We want no more blunt, bloated budgets that are out of control, no more financial strain, or we'll just leave. We don't have to stay here. Enough is enough. Okay? We don't need gold-plated assets. We just want potholes filled, water out of the taps without chemicals, and we want to have our input and we want to be listened to. I did a 10-page detailed breakdown of the annual plan, and then I got told it would talk for too long, so I brought it down to 4 or 5 pages, and I got there and I was only allowed 10 minutes to speak, and I had to be, somebody else is going to speak, and they all sat there and went, yeah, and I went home thinking, well, I've done my bit, and I've shown them how to save at least 68 million, 34 million just on food waste alone, and instead of acting on it or following up for some free budget, I offered my time for free. 3 days later, I got my rates demand in the letterbox with the increase that we'd already been threatened with. No phone call, no visit, no discussion, no nothing. Just here's your bill and pay it. Let's go, Taupo. It's your vote, it's your choice, but it's our future. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that was a great talk, Anne. We've got our next speaker is Rebecca, and she's standing for East Rural Ward, so the farming ward. So Rebecca has numerous disciplines to feather a cap. These include police force, business owner, employer for 8 years as a lifeline telephone counsellor, mental health and productivity coach, having a PhD in health psychology. She also was part of a commercial team developing commercial
Healthcare robotics.
robotics, and senior research consultant for New Zealand-based company developing robotics for those with prosthetics hands, for people that have had Amputations, yeah. And originally from Wellington, and living in a rural farming area and amongst the share milkers for 10 years. Rebecca spent time in around Auckland before moving to Taupo 5 years ago. Rebecca enjoys talking to the public and learns what isn't working for them and what is working for them. She looks for solutions to problems at hand. Rebecca likes immersing herself in new and complex topics, which makes running for council a good challenge, and she can sink her teeth into it. With having a grasp on many issues rural people face and see significant farmers' challenges that they face, she feels she will be really good and will go above and beyond to get their voices and concerns heard at the council table. So Rebecca, up to you now.
Thank you, Sandy. Lovely introduction. Sandy, I'll make your laptop behave. Thank you, Sandy, for that glowing introduction. Now, who was at our Acacia Bay Hall meeting a month ago? Political meeting, some of us, about half. So you may recall that I kind of started off my presentation with really the current mayor had made me stand for council, basically, and that was when I was at a accidentally undercover at a public council workshop, and the topic was there had been a budget blowout, and the topic was the staff were asking the councillors, is the blowout of the magnitude that we need to go back and reconsult with the public on the annual plan that had already been consulted on and agreed to the original figure. So there was debate around this, and and there was good reasons to not consult with the public, which is it's time consuming and expensive, and you don't want to be doing unnecessary consultation, and there was deep concern for the public that they had consultation fatigue. But the mayor didn't realise who was sitting next to me, and he said, yeah, the public don't understand anyway. That's not a good reason. There are some good reasons not to consult with the public, and that's not one of them. So, and I didn't say out loud, but I thought, hello, member of the public sitting right here. I didn't say that out loud. But I feel like if you can't clearly explain what you're doing with $123 million of public money, maybe it's time for quite a long holiday, not funded by the public. And so part of my campaign is I want to explain this stuff. So who's read the long-term plan 2024-2034 aside from Sandy, Dave, Duncan?
Yeah, I'm supposed to.
Okay, does anyone suffer from insomnia? So I kind of went through it with, I'm not a financial expert, but I like talking to experts, and I can figure shit out, and I spent years at university doing data analysis and playing with data and stuff. And so I kind of went through, so like reading this long-term report, and it's like some of it just like didn't make sense. So I went through some of it with a financial expert, and I also went through some of it and applied some of it to chat. GPT, yeah. And I thought a lot of the stuff can't, the public aren't stupid. So like when I was doing my PhD, so like majoring in health psychology, but my secondary supervisor, because it was robotics, it was half engineering and half in School of Medicine. So my secondary supervisor was head of computer and electrical engineering at Auckland University. Not a stupid guy, right? Did he major in psychology? No. So he was forever saying to me, explain that in plain language. So all of that jargon and the long-term plan and the annual plans and all of that can be explained quite easily
to smart people who don't necessarily have a background in finance. So I'm kind of like picking a few of these things out of the long-term plans and so on, which I think are important. And so tonight I want to just touch on the true cost of cheap debt. So, who knows how much debt the council's got?
31 million.
Yep, okay. How much operating revenue, income? Okay. So, Taupo District Council currently around, operating revenue around about 142 million. Debt approximately $237 million. I asked a friend who has a very small interest in council, I said, how much debt do you think the council's got? And I had actually told her before and she'd forgotten, and she's like, oh, I don't know, I can't remember. And I said, I'll make a guess, go on. And she said, 4 million? Oh. And when I told her, she's not a swearing person, and she dropped a few F-bombs. So this gives us a debt to revenue ratio of 1.7. Now, when you look in the council documents and they're talking about this, the word prudent comes up a lot. So, and the financial expert I ran some of the stuff through said if you took this long-term plan to the bank, they would laugh at you, like if it was a real business. So let's talk about, like, do you think this figure is prudent? Let's have a little chat about that and what the implications of it are.
Can you just explain those figures? It doesn't look like 1 to 7 to me.
Have I got it the right way around? Have I got it the wrong way around?
Yeah, well, one's about nearly twice the other one. What's
Debt is accruing over the years,
yeah.
so it's not this year.
Okay, so
Okay,
this
so
year's
there's
debt.
accumulated debt over the last, since 2011.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so for this year, thank you. Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
142 million is what it cost
Yeah.
them to operate this year.
Yeah. So
Uh,
20 million debt.
yeah. So in the 2024-2034 long-term plan, this is it. So that's a quote from page 3. So that's actually the financial strategy appendix. That's the plan. To have this large amount of debt, or the debt to revenue ratio, the main plan is to keep a low cost of financing. Okay, so how much control do we have over that? Okay. So there's a couple of problems with this awesome plan. One is, so the council's currently got a credit rating of AA++, plus good, and it's got a negative watch on that, so since February 2024. So there's been 4 identified reasons for that. Weakening institutional framework, which is kind of nationwide-ish. Rapidly rising sector debt, heavy investment in infrastructure and capex, inflationary pressures. So, what are the implications of this? So, apparently there's a 1 in 3 chance of this negative watch actually coming into effect and this credit rating being downgraded. What that means is the credit rating influences the interest rate at which you can borrow the debt at. So if the credit rating goes down, likely to be higher interest costs on that 1 to 7 debt to revenue ratio, or the other way around, and possibly higher higher rates or higher user costs and/or. And another little problem with relying on interest rates staying low, the official cash rate or overnight cash rate. So every night banks have to balance their books, so either borrowing money from the government or, and also refers to interbank lending as well. So it's basically, it's kind of the lowest interest rate you can get, and it's kind of known as it's like the base lending rate. So to give you an idea, so currently 3.25%, it's come down a little bit fairly recently. And to give you an idea of perspective of, official overnight cash rate started being measured from 1999, so we've got 26 years of it. So in that 26 years that it's been measured, so the lowest was the lockdown, a couple of years over lockdown, 0.25. It's been as high as 8.25%. So I don't know, I assume the current council debt is made up of a number of discrete debts which are being fixed at various times and interest rates, and one would hope that when the interest rates fall, they would try and refix as many loans as possible. But this is kind of beyond the council's control. So to have the plan of relying on low interest rates to cope with this large amount of debt is concerning. And so what to do about it? Now, we had the fun of chatting with Nobby Clark, Invercargill Mayor. I think he's done 3 terms, don't quote me on this. I think the last 2 as mayor. I believe he was shoulder tapped by local business people to stand as mayor. And you know, it was interesting talking to him. So I said to him, like, what are your, I think he's retiring after this term for a rest. And so I asked him, what are the key messages you've got? And he said, low debt, and one project at a time. Avoid overstretched, scattered staff and budget blowouts. Coming back to my first meeting with the mayor, my first accidental meeting with the mayor, which was about a budget blowout. And just a little bit of a comparison, so because there's some interesting similarities in Invercargill, population 58,000, Taupo about 40,000. So Invercargill $58 million debt, 122 million operating revenue, and giving them a 1.2 debt to revenue ratio. So they've got a lot more flexibility, and I would argue they're not on a security watch, so they're able to get the best interest rates for that debt. But I would also argue that part of these favourable conditions for Invercargill was that Nobby Clark made low debt a priority. So I'm going to suggest, rather than relying on a low cost of borrowing to support a large debt burden, how about relying on low debt? So I'd be suggesting prioritising debt retirement and lower debt. I mean, part of the problem with the kind of the what would you call it, the cause and effect nature of it is high debt puts your credit rating at risk, which means you're at risk of getting higher interest rates on your higher debt. So just really, I appreciate it's not, if it was easy, they would have already done it, right? So I appreciate it's not necessarily easy, but prioritising debt retirement over boom booms, and just basically minimising spending and back to basics. And I thought I highlighted it, but just chucking in civic literacy there. I've had 3 councillors now, including the mayor, say to me, "Oh, the public don't understand. It's complicated. The public don't understand." And you know, sort of refer back to my PhD supervisor. You know, the public is smart, but also in the long-term plan, quite frankly, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff I could go into, but in the interest of time, I'm not just focusing on one point. But there's a lot of flummery in that long-term plan. I would invite the council to have links to explainers of the terms, because there's various, like how you approach depreciation, like council's 100% funding depreciation. You know, there's different approaches to that with different implications, and it seems in terms of depreciation that they may have perhaps not put it in a high interest piggy bank and may have had to borrow instead. Where was I going with that? Yeah, you just having like the long-term plan have links, as they have with the appendixes, to explainers of these terms, like, you know, like using depreciation example or the debt to revenue ratios, what they mean, the implications of the different options, because it's not like one option, it's not like a one size fits all, and why they have chosen that particular option. Because if you're a financial expert yourself, or you go through that long-term plan with a financial expert, some of it's just flummery, just covering stuff up, and some of it could be simply explained and it's not. So, and as I said, you know, these days with AI and chat, there's never been less excuse for not explaining stuff simply and easily to a very smart public. So, thank you, that's my little rant for the night.